I got a question for you. How much critical hit damage would you need to feel godly? 200%? 300%? How about 411%? The real question is, what is the point of diminishing returns on SMG crit builds anyways? In this video, I'm going to give you a 436.4% critical hit damage Backfire build, the highest crit damage build seen to date. Then, we're going to go through several iterations to improve performance and survivability. In the end, you'll have 5 build templates you can choose from. Let's do this. Okay, so we got a ton to get through and not a lot of time. Let's jump right in. Each template will be built around the Backfire SMG. The Backfire gives us stacks up to 200% crit damage. I'll let you take a quick look at it here. The downside is that when we reload, it gives us bleed, which can kill us. Okay, for the build, I'm going to go quite quickly, so pay attention closely. All these pieces are sort of going to look the same. Now my chest piece is Sokolov for that 10% SMG damage, and it's got crit damage, and I put a crit damage mod there. And for the talent, I'm running Intimidate, which is giving me amplified damage at 35% to enemies within 10 meters. So here's my backpack, looks just like the chest piece, except it's got Adrenaline Rush, which is how we get Intimidate to work. This backpack alone is giving me 45% crit damage. My gloves are improvised, and they're giving me 24% crit damage. My knee pads are Grupo. These give me almost 27% crit damage. The holster is also improvised, and it's giving me almost 24% crit damage. I'm using Coyote's mask. This goes nicely with Intimidate because we're going to be fighting within that 10 meter range typically. So we're going to get 25% critical hit damage from this. This mask alone is giving me 49% crit damage. So the build at its base has 54% crit chance, 211.4% crit damage, and 10% immunity to bleed. We're rolling with the gunner specialization to get armor on kill, and we'll be using the fixture drone and booster hive to mitigate the bleed damage that's coming from the gun. So to quickly recap, the gear pieces are giving us 211.4% crit damage at the base. The Backfire stacks give us 200% crit damage. The Coyote's mask gives us 25% crit damage. That, my friends, is how we get a total of 436.4% critical hit damage. That's not a little thing. I think that might be the max critical hit damage you can achieve in the game. Okay, let's go pick a fight and see what this crit hit damage is going to do for us. So I predict I'm going to be killing quite quickly, but what we should be wondering is whether that's coming from the Backfire's added 200% crit damage or the build, which is already giving us 236% crit damage, plus 45% amplified weapon damage from Intimidate. To know how much benefit we're getting, we need to pay attention to the crit meter on the side of the Backfire when I'm firing. Because the enemies die so fast, and because the bleed and booster hives slow me down, it's going to be very difficult to get full stacks from the Backfire. And even if I do, maintaining it will be even harder. You lose your stacks quite quickly, every 10 seconds. I don't think builds like these really make use of the Backfire. Anything crit damage coming from the Backfire is adding milliseconds to the DPS. Plus, I'm going to be real with you guys, it's hard to get out of cover with a build like this. I feel way too vulnerable, especially with auto reload on MP. That's a killer if I don't have time to drop my hive. Also, if I'm taking any kind of damage from the enemies. And dropping the hive is so clunky, it slows you down, and you can't have that. You have to cross the terrain as fast as possible or you will lose your stacks. Each time you start over, rebuilding, you're exposing yourself to that bleed damage again. And once you reach 200%, you don't have to worry about the bleed after. So it's in your favor to maintain your stacks for as long as possible. And if you're thinking I should just stay put, not push, and shoot from cover, I would disagree. First, we wouldn't make use of the core parts of the build, Adrenaline Rush and Intimidate. Second, if you wait for the enemies to come to you the whole time, you will constantly lose your Backfire stacks. So without Intimidate and Backfire stacks, the build will not be really working in your favor. You're better off running something different. The Backfire wants you to run and gun. That's why there's a timer on the stacks. If that's not your style, I don't recommend this weapon. As far as damage output, I do feel powerful, but I don't think that's because of the Backfire. We're definitely not getting the benefit of 436.4% critical hit damage. So let's swap out the Backfire for the Dark Winter. It's got Perfect Killer on it, which is going to give us 50% critical hit damage, assuming we kill with a crit. So when it kicks in, with the build and the Coyote's mask, we'll be landing somewhere around 296% crit damage. Okay, so let's see if we can tell the difference between 140% less crit damage, give or take. So the problem isn't the Backfire. It's not that the gun sucks. The gun is great. We're just not using it correctly with a build like this. Using it, we were probably only averaging about 325% crit damage, give or take. That is definitely not its full potential. And that's because the weapon is designed to bring all the crit hit damage to the table that you'd need for a build. This way you can bring something else to the build that will help you survive. My point is, sometimes you gotta take a very close look at the weapon talents and say, what does this weapon want me to do? And the Backfire tells me it wants me to get out of cover, it wants me to move fast, and it wants me to build in survivability. We might say it's asking me to put together some sort of hybrid build. And yes, the weapons talk to me. Okay, so we obviously need to pull back crit damage and build in survivability. Let's start by adding hazard protection, immunity to bleed, and armor regeneration. Okay, so watch closely. So I'm gonna have hazard protection and bleed resistance everywhere I can. As well, the gear pieces I'm choosing will be adding armor regeneration. And at the base, we'll be getting a little over 30,000 armor back per second. But because I'm running Ridgeway's Pride as my chest piece, that doubles, triples, quadruples our armor regen per second. With just one enemy bleeding, we'll be getting an additional 3% armor regen per second. So that's 60-something thousand armor back per second. And because we're running Ridgeway's Pride, I swapped out my backpack talent for Wicked, which gives us 18% weapon damage for 20 seconds as soon as we apply a status effect. And I'm keeping my armor at 1.1 million. I don't want too much armor so that I can balance my time to kill. So we're landing at just about 50% critical hit chance and 286 crit damage with the Backfire. And of course we have 66% hazard protection and 96.4% bleed resistance. So no bleed. You can't just adopt a template per se and hope that it works out as you see it happening here on your screen. There's a lot of details that you have to take into consideration and whether a build is going to work for you as you would expect. See, I've put a lot of time and experimentation in this game, and if you have too, you can probably tell from the surface when somebody puts up a build whether it'll be good for you or not. And that's why I put together build videos like this where I walk you through my thought process so that you can see that these aren't junk builds. Now, they may not be the right build for you, but I'm not just posting up builds for the sake of posting a video. Now, I was very nice with build template 1, but the reality is, on my thoughts, it's a vanity build. I would never run that. Now, there's a difference between content creators out there. The greats will show you a build like that and say, hey, you can. And I think those videos are important because they show a weapon and build's threshold. That's important. On the other hand, you might come across another video promoting a 400 plus crit damage build with the Backfire, suggesting that it's OP and you should run it. How does it make you feel when you try out that build? And if you're an experienced player like me, you can probably tell from the surface that it's not for you as well. But I feel bad for the new players, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because they grind and they go and get these pieces and they equip the build, run a control point or a mission, and they just feel weak and they think that there's something wrong with them. Or even worse, they start having distrust in the content creators. Hey, look, don't listen to me. Remember, one man's garbage is another man's treasure. I think this build is great for close quarters legendary content. For heroic content where I'm out of cover more, I need more like a burst heal. So let's head over to build 3. The goal of this build is to have full bleed immunity and high burst weapon damage. We also want to make sure we have the resilience to be out of cover. So for that, we're running 1.3 million armor with adrenaline rush on our backpack and intimidate on our chest. The reason why we want that high burst damage is because we're going to be dedicating a lot of our pieces to armor on kill. With my 2 Bellstone pieces and the death grips, plus the gunner specialization, we have 30% armor on kill. That's not a little thing, that's a ton. Everything else is being rolled to bleed immunity, hazard protection, and crits. Peeps, I encourage you to watch this video all the way through because as we progress, these build templates are only going to get better, but it's still up to you to choose the one that's right for your playstyle. So we have 58% critical hit chance, 210% critical hit damage, 380,000 armor on kill, 10% of that is from the gunner specialization. Lastly, we have almost 70% hazard protection and will be completely immune to bleed. Armor on kill builds are great if you have the confidence to be out of cover and have the time to kill to bring that enemy down with just enough armor and heals to take a little bit of damage, then you have the correct formula. To make this your own, just move things around to give yourself more survivability or more damage depending on how you play. Notice how long I'm keeping up those Backfire stacks. I'm at 200% and it's sticking around for a while. That's one of the ways I can tell that the build is in balance. Agents, just wanted to take this time to let you know that I'm inviting you to join me and other agents just like you as we level up our Division 2 gameplay. jump into conversation, and meet new runmates on my Discord, Twitter, and more. I have links in the description area down below. And if you haven't already done so, now is a great time to subscribe. Okay, agents, so the next 2 builds are going to be quite special, but pay attention closely because I'm going to move very quickly here for the sake of time. So basically, all the parts are pretty much the same as the builds before. I'm just sort of moving things around, but the goal of this next build will be to have full bleed immunity and protection from elites while being able to dish out serious damage. So to do this build, you're going to need a lot of improvised pieces. Keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's hazard protection, protection from elites mods, and bleed resistance mods. So in the end, we're going to land at 52% crit chance and 284% crit hit damage with the Backfire. But more importantly, we're going to have 73% protection from elites, which is almost max. Max is 80%. And we're going to be 100% bleed resistant. On top of that, we're going to have 90% hazard protection. Guys, this is going to be a fantastic build. We're going to be protected from all the elements. Trust me, it'll be fun. 284% critical hit damage is a ton. I mean, think about those AR builds and those SMG builds other than the Backfire. I mean, they do not get close to this number. And we're putting this on top of Intimidate, and that's 35% amplified damage. So this is gonna hit. So what we gotta see is how fast can we move from kill to kill? Can we maintain our stacks? Can we stay out of cover? And more importantly, can we survive? By the way, watch episode 6 of the Division 2 Netflix-style build miniseries after this vid. It guest stars one of the biggest Division 2 community leaders, and the cinematics will have you irking for more. Build 4 is really special, guys. It's actually a very rare build. I haven't seen this out there at all. The Backfire combination with protection from elites at max, as well as max bleed immunity, is something the Division 2 player community has not seen yet, as far as I'm aware. Let me know if you've seen it before. And you may or may not realize, but this is actually a really good build variant for legendary content. Your survivability is really high. In the Backfire, it's not great at burst damage, but against very tanky enemies like legendary enemies are, those stacks definitely get to that max 200%, and you really get to utilize the most out of the build and the weapon. And next up, you can see why this build really shines. We're going to take on some rogues, and we're going to use our protection from elites to push on them, keeping them on their heels the entire time. Now, you're not invulnerable. You can die. You just have to play smart. Okay, build 4 was great and it was a lot of fun, but I think we can have more fun with build variant 5. Build 5 is going to bring it all together. So we're going to get all the stacks and power from the Backfire. We're going to use the Memento to give us bonus armor on kill and improve our build's performance over time in both survivability and damage. We'll be getting more repair skills as well as armor regeneration. As far as stats go, we're going to have 58% critical hit chance, 273% critical hit damage, just under 50% protection from elites, 80% hazard protection, and 100% bleed resistance. And just a quick note, I'm using Obliterate instead of Intimidate for my chest piece talent. I like it because I can start building those stacks as I'm approaching the enemy, unlike Intimidate, which only kicks in once I'm within that 10 meters. Also, that damage won't go away when I lose my bonus armor. It'll stay with us as long as we're shooting. And we're definitely putting ourselves in harm's way, so don't expect that bonus armor to just be hanging around, if you know what I mean. But we got protection from elites, so we're gonna fare out. Also notice I'm running Survivalist as my specialization. That's giving me 10% protection from elites, and it also allows me to run the Mender Seeker as well as the Fixer drone. You can also go with the Gunner specialization and get 10% armor on kill instead. But for heroic content, 50% protection from elites feels really good. This may or may not be the strongest of all the build templates I just provided, but arguably it could be considered the most fun. Being able to have the confidence to pop out of cover and run and gun feels really good in this game. Especially with an SMG, the worst thing is when you're pinned down in cover trying to shoot at range with an SMG. In sum, the measure of a good backfire build is not just power and survivability, but for how long you can hold your backfire stacks. In short, what you're looking for is speed, a fast-paced build. For heroic, I like build 3 and 5. 5 is a hybrid build with the Memento backpack and is overall my favorite. But it's a close call because builds 2 and 4 are really good too. I would say they're more well-rounded and would be better suited for legendary content than 3 and 5 are. What's more important about any of these build templates is that you adjust them for your playstyle. Don't feel like you have to go exactly how I've put these together. Just know your thresholds. You need to be bleed resistant. You need to have more than 1.1 million armor and as much crit chance as you can fit. The rest is up to you. Hey agents, thank you so much for watching this video to the end. It really helps my channel. Also, have you seen my Division 2 Netflix style build miniseries? These aren't your average build videos. Each episode is introduced with an integrated cinematic storyline, delivered from the character's perspective, followed by a detailed overview of the character's build loadout, gameplay, and an awesome soundtrack. Here's episode 1 and the most recent episode released. Tux out.